roads, and Works, Transport, Ministry of Works and Transport is getting more money. Then we do have education as well as the health sectors getting less money. When you look at the budget 2021 into 2022, you did have Works and Transport topping it, security coming in number 2, education took the 3rd place, and then health came in at number 4, even in the midst of COVID-19 that caused a lot of attention to the dire state of our health sector. So is the budget responsive to our health challenges once again in the 2022-2023 budget expected to be read tomorrow? That's a big question mark. Now here to help me break it down is Miss Alana Kembabazi, who's the program manager, Right to Health, and that is Initiative for Social and Economic Rights. Good morning to you, Miss Alana.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. And I'm excited for the budget reading tomorrow. It's always a big day.
When you say excited, what are you looking forward to in particular?
Well, you know, part of why I'm excited is because I think that this country has a whole lot of talk about what it prioritizes. And I think it's one of the few opportunities, and I hope all the citizens tune in to see whether or not they actually prioritize it. I don't think they do, to the extent that they should, in terms of thinking about making sure we have quality public services, such as day-to-day Ugandans. Right now, the cost of living is high. You're struggling with food, you're struggling with fuel. Should you also struggle to access healthcare? Has the budget actually done enough to make sure that you can get healthcare without having to choose between healthcare and food? Has it done enough for education? So for me, I think it's time, it's our money as Ugandans, and the budget reading is always a big deal. Now, I don't think they'll deliver. From our analysis, they haven't delivered according to what we hope they should, or according to the aspiration of the National Development Plan.
Okay.
But I do think every Ugandan should tune in and know this, because how else do you hold people accountable for the money?
All right.
It's ours.
Let's take a look at back 2022-2023 as we get to see how much has been allocated. When you look at the budget allocation 2021 into 2020 into 2021, you had a 2.8 billion shillings that was allocated to health, which was a 7.9%. You have 21 into 22, it was given 3.7 billion, which was an increment of a bit of a percentage to 9.8%. Whereas we did have the African Union Summit that sat and said, when you have your top 3 in terms of the sectors that need to be focused on to move Africa forward, you've got to focus on education and health. Those should be on your top 3. But we don't see health on top 3 so far. We've had a sneak peek into 2022 into 2023, and health and education combined has been given an 8.9 billion Ugandan shillings. So what is in it for health, Alana? Is it a win? Is there wins for you as advocates in the health sector?
Well, I will say this, that there are slight wins. They've increased the funding for human resource for health, which has been a huge issue. You've seen the nurses, just recently the nurses were striking, and midwives. Before that it was doctors. So there's been some commitment to increase pay. They still haven't addressed the fact that they also need to recruit a lot more healthcare workers, because a lot of the healthcare workers in public health facilities are just completely overworked. So I would say that is a slight win. But honestly, I was really hoping for more of a win. Like you've said, it's COVID-19. We learned so much. I mean, last year we buried so many of our dead. We lacked ICUs. We had an oxygen crisis. And if you look at the budget right now, for example, we still have a funding gap of 3.2 billion for maintenance of the few available ICUs and HDUs. And we only have few. So we know that. So not only we have right now, we have one public ICU bed for about 188,000 Ugandans. So if you get a surge of COVID or some crazy disease, if monkeypox, for example, ever required ICUs, we get screwed again. We are like in this cycle of seeing things happen and then saying, oh, we will change, but not actually putting money, because this is something you would then prioritize. Otherwise, the rich will always have access to this. They'll be flown abroad, or they'll go to the fancy private facilities, but the poor will not. You would also think that we would see more construction of health facilities. I mean, listen, right now people have talked about the fuel crisis and saying the cost of living is so high, so public transport is high. If you could walk to your health facility, which is what the health sector development plans and national health policies that it should be within 5 kilometers. If you could walk to your facility, you would not be so scared about whether or not without fuel you can get your loved one the health facility. But we see that, again, despite these plans to construct 134 sub-counties, health facilities in each sub-country, and upgrade this many health facilities, we still say the funding is not commensurate, right? And you don't allocate funding for them. So it's very confusing. You plan to do so, you don't allocate funding for them. A lot of, again, things like maintenance of regional equipment. We should have these shops. Remember in the oxygen crisis, regional equipment was just breaking down, right? Regional oxygen plants, etc. Again, you see a lack of budgeting around that, a lack of serious budgeting around that. And again, just a lot of unfunded priorities, which makes me wonder if they're unfunded priorities, and you know they're essential. There's this funny trick we play with government where we leave the unfunded priorities, and then we know you bring a supplementary, and of course, you will have to fund them.
So, Alana, in your fight for the right of health, what do you think are the unplanned priorities that should be considered?
I mean, I think that whenever we try to rationalize, for example, what's around health, blood transfusion services, national medical stores, around medicine and blood, like you're saying you're rationalizing them and blah, 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 but you're not giving them enough money, right? And I think that there are things we know we will always need to give adequate funding for.
Okay.
Issues around blood, issues around access to medicines, issues around ICUs. So I think that when you leave them as unfunded priorities, you're playing a game where, you know, it's like when you go and you buy meat and you don't have any beans at home. Doesn't make sense, because the crisis hits, you're going to have to, if someone comes back to you and says, there's no food, there's no sauce, I need beans, later on, whether or not you have money, you're going to go look for it. Which is the pressure that you then put Ugandans under. You come later on with a supplementary budget. Supplementary budgets are not scrutinized. You saw the recent scandal about them going above the spending limits by the Public Finance Management Act. And we stay in this cycle. I really hope that by now, particularly with the health sector, we would have learned the lesson. Like you said, we've never gotten to our 15% Abuja declaration target, yet the president is here talking middle income status. Middle income status when your people are failing to get health care. Is that even a question in this day and age?
It definitely raises some question marks, Alana. But you have talked about construction of health facilities, but also maintenance of those health facilities, something that we have seen challenging us here in Uganda. Now, we do have the Luwa hospital that has never seen the day of light today. The money that was allocated to the construction of that hospital is going to be reallocated to other areas in the health sector. So I do have a sort of a two-in-one question for you. Where do you think this money will be allocated versus where it should be allocated in the next financial year?
That's an interesting question, and our analysis was not, this I think are discussions that are evolving, because on the one hand you hear that, then there's a time when it wasn't too long ago when they were asking for more money, and we were all shouting, why not? In full disclosure, ISA has a case against government on the legality of Luwa Hospital, so I won't get into a lot of that. For us, we don't think it was a good idea from the start. We thought it was illegal, and it does not serve the needs of Ugandans. It's a very expensive venture, and now we all see that not only was it expensive and not even serving our needs, it was also a sham, because nothing has been done. It's the only place where people say it was raining over COVID. Like, it didn't rain over Uganda. Anyway, I do think that if we were to allocate this equitably, we should be getting and giving that money to constructing more health facilities. You have to look at the way an ordinary Ugandan accesses healthcare. I'll give you an example. I was just in Mitoma, where they will tell you that a woman was telling me, you know, I had to join a circle to get blood pressure medicine. And because I didn't have the money to pay for the circle, this is in a government health facility, I don't understand what is happening. I can't get blood pressure medicine. And recently I learned this woman is in ICU. Like, she just had to choose between her health, getting blood pressure medicine and food and other needs, and she just let it go because there was no blood pressure medicine available for her in a government facility that she could get to. In fact, the reason why she told me she was trying to ask me to get her a lift to a far off town. And I think that is the way Ugandans access healthcare. So can we bring these services closer to people? Can we have fully equipped health facilities that are within walkable distance? Can we make sure that when we get to Mulago, you're not paying that money, you have to pay someone, right? Such a poor but get healthcare. Because now, who does the Lubowas of this world cater to? What did it cater to me? It caters to those who are higher. They were really explicit with the Lubowas to say it was for medical tourism. But medical tourism, when you people can't get healthcare.
Okay.
And that was the anger that we saw with Olanya's day. People are like, you fly your politicians abroad, and for us, we are here. We don't get healthcare. So focus on the access, on making health facilities accessible and of good quality, public health facilities.
All right, thank you so much, Alana, for that. You definitely bring in a point, but if we're going to create money to construct facilities, then we'd have to create another budget altogether to facilitate or equip these facilities. But away from that, we do have this budget reading tomorrow coming into, presence of Ugandans in the wake and in the middle of strikes, doctors, nurses, allied workers in the health sector. But also up until most recently, the surge of COVID-19, it could be back. And as of this morning, we have seen terms and conditions of the COVID workers that were rudely terminated in March, saying that if they're going to come back and help the health sector, it's on conditions of permanent employment, not just as casual laborers. So in regards to all those things that are happening around the health sector, how do we get to settle this issue, especially in terms of remuneration of our health workers? Where we stand right now, does it have to take us strikes to be able to deal and attend to the issues and appreciate them, more so reward their wages?
Yeah, and I think you hit on the head, like we're in this very stopgap way of implementation. You rush and recruit workers, then you leave them. Then they have to strike for better pay for others. It's like, it's just very reactionary. I mean, and what is very funny is at the helm of the ministry are health workers. The Minister of Health at some point used to lead strike. I think these are health workers. So they should understand the conditions. If you want quality healthcare, you must invest in having a good workforce. You must recruit enough so they're not overworked. You must pay them enough so they're not leaving the health facilities and going to dig or hustle or drive border borders like we see them doing in the rural areas. And I'm trying to figure out how long. I mean, I feel like for the last decade or so, or even more, it has been strike after strike after strike. That's why I said, for me, the positive is that they are planning to enhance salary in a phased manner over 3 years. I think at the end of it will be 932 billion. But again, we need to have more deliberate fiscal allocations to recruit health workers. I'm very surprised by this idea that I keep seeing. They do this. They recruit for COVID-19 and they fire them. I want to know, how skilled are they? Are they actually healthcare workers? Because if you are recruiting them and you know we have a low workforce, you should find ways to reabsorb them, to keep them on standby. You understand? Like, particularly because they keep telling us COVID-19 doesn't go, it just kind of goes down and comes up. We must be ready for surges. So what are you doing? And when the pay comes, why is always there some kavuyo around pay? Is money being eaten? I mean, Ugandans, we need to start asking these questions.
Well, thank you so much, Alana Kembabazi, for your contributions. She is the program manager, Right to Health, ISA, and we'll definitely continue the conversation later on throughout the course of the week. We'll be looking into different sectors. So thank you so much, Alana. Of course, whatever she has submitted to us this morning raises the question, how do we add value to the health sector with the new budget that is going to be shared with Ugandans tomorrow? Well, we'll find out tomorrow from the Finance Minister, Matia Kasaija. Wrapping it all up at the end of the day, we've got to cater for one, health, education, as well as agriculture for a country like Uganda to be able to thrive and challenge the economic crisis, to be able to enjoy what we have in our country in terms of natural resources, as well as enjoying the basic needs, which is food, health, and education. Away from that, we're going to take a short break. When we return, we do have Stephen Bide on ground to help us understand from the people's voice what they expect out of the budget. Do stay with us.
You're watching